For someone that was in DV, it's a horrible place to be. And sometimes you can't even recognise it for what it is. I sure didn't.
I wasn't seeing any sort of really good role models in gay relationships. There was no, healthy relationships on TV that you could look at. I didn't really have anyone to model that off, I suppose. And also when you look at everything that I'm seeing, whether it be through government campaigns or support services, it's always that heterosexual portrayal of male abusing a woman. So, can I be a victim in the first place? So it was quite confusing, I suppose.
But I know the feelings around that were shame and sadness, grief, self-disgust, uncomfortableness, pain. There's so many horrible words that could go with that, but it's all back down to your gut feeling. Your gut feeling says this isn't right, then listen to the gut feeling.
There's that myth of, it's just boys being boys and a man should be able to defend himself. And that was something that always sort of, made me think, can I be a victim? We're the same size, I'm a man, I should be able to protect myself. And because of these myths and stereotypes, that can prevent people from identifying it. It can prevent their friends, families, work colleagues from actually seeing those as abusive behaviours because they don't think that abuse can occur in those relationships.
So the best way that I can explain what domestic violence looks like is an imbalance of power and control. That might show up in a whole heap of different ways. It could be isolation, it could be emotional abuse, financial control, coercion and threats, intimidation, anything that causes fear or anything that can mean that the person who's experiencing that behaviour is afraid to be who they want to be.
At the end of the day, we are all human and we deserve to be safe and loved and respected, no matter what type of relationship we choose.
I think it's very important that we ensure that the community is aware that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, that it can happen in any form of a relationship.
Last year, the Queensland Police dealt with 120,000 domestic and family violence occurrences. And I do know that the LGBTI community is one that is entirely underreported.
The statistics are around 1 in 2 LGBTQ people experience an instance of violence within their relationship in their lifetime. More concerningly, that for trans-identifying people, that it is almost certain that they will have an experience of domestic and family violence as part of their relationship or with an experience with their family of origin.
There is nowhere near enough support for our LGBTIQA+ community.
I think there's a lack of education around what domestic violence looks like in all relationships, but particularly within the LGBTIQ+ community. I think that if we had the data that we needed, we would be able to have a better picture of what we need to do to start looking at prevention. But I think part of the problem is that we don't have the data.
I think the complication is, for all of us, is that we are living in a binary world. We believe, and it's mostly the case, that there are men, cisgendered men and cisgendered women. But then there's a whole load of us who aren't there. So we don't get to access those services because they don't cater for question marks or in-betweens.
A lot of people don't understand the breakdown of the LGBTIQ and the specific dynamics of each of those demographics. I think that education needs to come in to break down each of those specific demographics and educating folk who provide the services so that they don't have to ask the person asking for help to help them to understand what their need is, but they just know how to help.
The best thing that we always encourage services to do is that they change the language on their websites and sort of talk about people perpetrating violence and victims of violence rather than making it a gendered conversation, because that can help LGBTQ people to feel seen, supported by that service and feel more comfortable in accessing their services.
Where do you fit? Like, everything's binary. So if I wanted to go to a women's shelter and I am male to female, will they believe me? Will there be anywhere for me to go? If they do try and help me, where is that help? I mean, all the shelters and stuff are binary as well. So there's all those sorts of questions that you have to deal with first.
I think there are some real challenges, particularly if we think about someone's experience of going to court. Our court systems are currently set up, again, very gendered, very binary, and even the support that's offered is very gendered and very heteronormative. And often you'll find there's situations where the person using violence and the person experiencing violence often have to be in the same space, in the same courthouse, which is manifestly unsafe.
I can remember back when I was training to be a GP, when we did a session on domestic violence, and the only narrative that we were given was violence that was perpetrated by a man against a woman. That definition has limited a lot of GPs and a lot of health professionals' view as to what domestic violence is. I think the first thing that healthcare professionals need to do when reaching out to LGBTQ people is let them know that they are in a safe space. You've got patients who are probably in the LGBTQ community, and them having to come out to their doctor is already a big step. So having to come out that second time and talk about domestic violence is massive. So we need to make that easy for them.
People who are witnessing DV often can see it for what it is, but can't often relay that to the person that is in the DV situation, either because they're good friends and they don't want to upset their relationship with that person, their friendship with that person, or they know that their friend isn't going to listen to them. I would certainly try and have that conversation with that friend, knowing that that may end your friendship, but it may create some safety for that person. And if you really truly love your friend, then you would do that. You would sacrifice that friendship to make sure they're safe.
Everybody's entitled to feel safe and be safe and be able to live a life without fear of their lives being controlled and manipulated.
We all have a responsibility to play in ending domestic violence for all people, and as bystanders, what we want people to do is recognise that the role that they play for people in their lives. Bystanders play a critical role in ensuring that people access support, tell their story, share what they're going through.
Often it's just important to be able to say, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you, and that be enough. So that when that person is actually ready to reach out or they are ready to talk, that they know that you're a safe person to go to.
DV Connect is an incredible service in Queensland. It's 24/7 crisis response for anyone, no matter what sort of relationship you're in.
We have a network of particular officers who are trained and understanding more of the needs of the LGBTI community, who are there to provide a service to members of the LGBTI community who might be fearful of otherwise contacting the police.
So the LGBTQ Awareness Foundation is proud to partner with Say It Out Loud, who offer a number of services from counselling to safety planning to support for friends, families, work colleagues, and bystander toolkits. Anyone that is experiencing violence or abuse, just know that you're not alone. It happens to so many people, but we just don't talk about it. And that needs to change. We need to start talking about it. There's so many options out there. You really just need to get in touch with one of the support services and, talk through your options about what you can do.